Hey there, multi-passionate. Jennie here, and you are listening to episode 59. If you've been with me for a minute, you may have noticed that I like to offer a well-rounded array of topics on this show. So my interviews are with people I consider multi-passionate success stories and who have real actionable tips from the trenches of entrepreneurship. On the other hand, I've been focusing my solo episodes of late on those of you who are looking to start a business from scratch. So a few weeks ago, I talked about how to narrow down all of your ideas to the very best one to build a business around. It's episode 57 if you need to go back and give it a listen. But today, I want to talk about the top 8 things you need to do right away now that you have a business idea and you're ready to run with it. So these are things that I wish I had known needed to happen immediately when I first started. So today's episode is to save you the time spinning your wheels, Googling what's next, to ensure you don't look back a year from now and say, damn, I wish I had started that sooner, which is a refrain I hear from my friends in the online business space all the time. Let's help you not have that regret, shall we? The first thing you're going to want to do when you're ready to start your business is buy a domain and web hosting. So, chances are good you're going to need a website for your business, yeah? And that starts with buying a domain and hosting. But these are two separate things, and they can get a little confusing. So let's talk about domain names first. This is the URL for your site. So mine, for example, is jennyo'connor.com. But I have had plenty of other domain names for the multitude of other businesses that I have had. And here is what that experience taught me. If you identify as multi-passionate, and you do, or you wouldn't be here, and you are making a thing, and you might change your mind down the line about how much this thing brings you joy. Or you might add several other things onto your business in layers as your brand grows. You should just get yourname.com as your domain name. You might be tempted to come up with something clever for your URL instead. Oh, how I want to talk you out of this. Clever names, they take a long time to come up with, y'all. Never mind the ideation stage where you're just listing things and you're, looking at a thesaurus to come up with the other words for a concept that you're trying to communicate. If you're smart, you're going to have people that you trust vote on the final list so that you can narrow it down further, or you might poll your social media audience if you already have one. And then once you've decided on the perfect one, you better hope it's not already taken in all of its various iterations with a hyphen or multiple hyphens or an underscore, etc., etc. And then you better not change your mind somewhere down the line and decide that this line of work isn't really for you after all. And then you might be locked into contracts. Let's say you pay for the year up front or 3 because it was cheaper. Not to mention the time. All of those hours that you spent coming up with a clever name. Look, I know you love a good rabbit hole, but wouldn't you rather start making money? Yourname.com, it will always serve you. If you offer coaching or consulting services, if you decide to write books or do public speaking or make art in any medium, it will always make sense to have yourname.com as your URL. Even if you design products, which are the one exception to the don't waste time on a clever name rule, you can start out offering them at yourname.com and evolve later. The other thing that's important to ensure is that it is a .com. I know there are lots of other options out there, and you may be tempted if .com is taken to just grab .net or .something else. But let me ask you, when someone reads you a URL and stops before the .whatever part, how do you finish that sentence? .com, am I right? People always assume it's .com. If they remember the name of your URL, they will default to .com. So there's a chance that if you're .net or .something else more obscure, they will actually give up. If they go home and they remember, oh, I'm supposed to go look at that website, and they type it in and .com doesn't come up, usually your website name will still pop up on the first page of search results, but let's say it doesn't for some reason. You don't have your SEO in place and it's not ranking on the first page, or they misspell one thing and it doesn't show similar searches. They might give up before they ever actually land on your website. So if you have to put a hyphen in your name or an underscore in your name, fine, but get the .com. Next up is web hosting. Your domain will be cheap, something like $18.99 for the year. And I use Bluehost for my domain and web hosting. I absolutely love them. I'm going to drop a link for you guys in the freebie that I'm giving away for this episode. So stay tuned to the end and I will tell you how to get your hands on that. But I highly recommend Bluehost for your hosting. I just think they have really affordable prices. They've got great customer service. And your web hosting will cost more than your domain because it's typically a monthly charge. But with the Bluehost, the basic web hosting, which is perfectly adequate for an entrepreneur like myself, is I think $3.95 a month. And just to clarify here for you, web hosting is where your website files are physically stored, and a domain is the address of that storage location. So you can't create a website without first purchasing a domain name. But you can have a domain name and just not have a website. If someone goes to it, it will say under construction, or it'll just show like one of those generic pages that indicates that a website has not been built here yet. So Bluehost plays nicely with WordPress. So WordPress is how I built my site. You can also buy the WordPress site builder monthly package, and your domain will be included in that. So all of these are options that you can read about on the Bluehost main page. WordPress is great because it has plugins that you can just download and add to your site to add certain functionality, like social media sharing buttons, for example, or if you want your Instagram feed to show up as a carousel on the bottom of your website, there's a plugin for that. I will say though, that unless you know coding, and I know the tiniest, most minimal amount of coding, I basically can cut and paste things from one page to another if I want the same functionality on two different pages, but that's about as far as it goes. You will eventually need the help of a webmaster for your WordPress website. As much as it is these days designed to be drag and drop, if you're like me and you are like an uber control freak and need certain things in certain places, you will probably need the help of an expert. However, you can find someone very affordable, very easily on Upwork. That is my go-to for hiring out jobs that I cannot or don't want to do. So I will say that there are some competitor website builders out there that supposedly require no coding skills whatsoever, and you won't need the help of a professional, but I still love the look of a WordPress website. I'm not in any sort of hurry to transition over to one of these drag and drop websites like Wix. I can't speak to how great they are or if they're better or worse. I just know that WordPress has been around for a really long time. I'm really happy with how it works, and once in a while I have to reach out to someone to get some help on some things. So that's task number one. For your second task, you need to start a mailing list. And I hear you going, wait, Jennie, whoa, it's way too soon. I don't have a website built yet. I barely know what I'm going to be sharing online yet. Why is this step number 2? I want you to hear this. I didn't say it wrong. This is step number 2. Go ahead and slap up a simple version of your website before you tackle this step, but promise me you will do it the very next thing, because you need to start a mailing list right now, like actually yesterday. If you haven't heard this before, you're about to start hearing it a lot. And if you listen to business podcasts, you've definitely heard this before, that an email list is your most important asset as an entrepreneur, because you don't own your Instagram followers or your Facebook followers or any of your social media connections. And if Facebook goes down, you're completely out of luck for that hour or that day if you want to communicate with your audience. And if they decide to change things down the line, they could just yank your followers from you. I know that would result in a gigantic coup, but It's possible versus email will always belong to you. So this is inarguably one of the top things that you need to invest your time in. And on a consistent basis, once you get your business up and running, your email list and communicating with them and forging relationships with them needs to be a top priority every week of your business life moving forward. Now, a little sidebar real quick. I've heard it said that not everybody needs a website, and there are definitely industries where people are finding that a website isn't super necessary. But I don't really understand how you can have an email list and not have a website. I mean, how do people take the action that you want them to take in an email, even if all that is for them to go peruse your other articles or your resource page or something? It doesn't have to be selling them a product or a service at first. But getting eyeballs on your ideas feels infinitely harder without a website. And it's downright impossible without an email list. So if you're one of those people who's out there doing business without a website, I encourage you to reach out to me and just sort of explain to me what you do and how you make that work. Because I've racked my brain, and I think that a website, even just a basic one, is pretty much a necessity for everybody, and an email list is an absolute necessity that then points people back to your website. So how do you build an email list? I'm going to tell you, and I'm going to devote at least one episode in the near future to the nitty-gritty of how this is done. But step one is to decide on an angle. What do you want to talk about or create a product about? What do you enjoy researching so that you can teach other people about it? What are you currently super passionate about? Because I know you're passionate about a lot of things. How can you use that to help people? And then I want you to make a list of attributes of a specific type of person who would most benefit from learning about the topic that you've chosen. So why would they care about your topic? What are their struggles related to your topic? What inspires them? What motivates them to learn more about this particular thing? Then list who you already know. So don't overthink this. Someone in your current network of friends, family, colleagues, workout buddies, church congregation, whatever, who has at least some of the attributes that you listed in the last step. We need at least one person here, but hopefully you can think of a lot. The more you can think of, the easier your product will be to sell without even having to branch out of your current circle. But if you can only think of one person, like, don't be discouraged. You're just going to have to go out and find those people. So these people, the list of names that you're going to write down right now, these are real life customer avatars for your business. So at some point in the process of setting up your business, you're going to have to get really clear on who your ideal client is. These people, especially the ones that have all of the attributes that you listed, they are already your ideal client. So focus on them when you start writing newsletters and blog posts and social media captions, because those are the exact people that you want to be speaking to. So now at this point, you've got a list of a couple names, ideally 10, hopefully closer to like 50, but work with what you got. Now you're going to reach out to each one of them individually and say something like this. Hey Leah, so I'm doing a lot of research on the benefits of carb cycling, pheromone diffusers, self-hypnosis, whatever the thing is. Then add a sentence here on why it's important, interesting, or relevant to this person that you're having this conversation with. And then say, is this something you'd be interested in learning more about? Just let me know. If not, no worries. Thanks. Boom. Personal, non-aggressive, short, and sweet. It's critical, though, that you reach out individually to people rather than just blasting a status update to your entire Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. And of course, some people won't be interested. There may be someone who is, though, who is connected to that person. So when you get a reply back from someone who says, no thanks, you can reply with something super friendly and low pressure, like, that's okay, thank you for considering it. And if you know anyone who might be interested, don't hesitate to let them know. To make it easy, you're welcome to just forward my email to them from here. Thanks again, all the best. Now, I just want to say, When I did this exercise, I was terrified. And it's so funny to look back on now because I've had to do so many scarier things since then that this feels like such a tiny thing now. And that is not to downplay it for you. If this feels scary for you, all I'm trying to say is I feel you. And one day you're going to look back and be like, I can't believe I thought that thing was hard. So it will happen for you. And I totally get it. I think there's something about hearing the word no that we attach to our own self-worth. And it just seems like the idea is bad. That person doesn't really like us. They're not a supportive friend. I mean, there's just so much. It's such a loaded thing to hear the word no. So let me tell you a couple of things that I think might help because you have to do this. This step is super important. So you've got to get over the hump, whatever it takes. For starters, hearing no won't kill you. I promise. The sky won't fall. You will get up tomorrow. Life will be basically the same as it is today. Also, you're not bothering people by sending them this text or this email. You are asking if they'd like to learn about something that you find fascinating and that you think might actually help them. So you're just helping. And most of the people that you're reaching out to at this stage of the game, they love you and they respect you. So they're not going to laugh you off the stage. Even if they're not interested, they're still going to support the fact that you are on this path and that you have entrepreneurial aspirations. So hopefully some of that will help you get to this task sooner rather than later. Don't put it off. But email me if you need more of a pep talk than that. I got you, I promise. Jennie at Jennie O'Connor. This episode is brought to you by the Multi-Passionate Master Plan. Your dream job is closer than you realize. Imagine waking up each morning excited to start your day. Imagine being so engaged in your work that you forget to take breaks and only wrench yourself away when nature starts calling loudly. If you've ever lost time working on something you truly love, you know what it feels like to do the work you were put here to do. And it's a far cry from that feeling of dread you get at the beginning of your work week now. If you're ready to take the plunge into entrepreneurship, but don't know which of your 1,000 ideas to choose or where to begin once you've chosen, the Multi-Passionate Master Plan is for you. In this 6-week group coaching program designed with squirrel brain creators in mind, you will uncover your $1 million idea and create a roadmap that eliminates everything standing in your way. And if you jump on the waitlist today, you'll get a special offer for 40% off the program cost when I open the doors next month. So is it finally time to take action? Because the only regret I hear from my entrepreneur friends time and time again is I wish I had done it sooner. If you don't want that to be you, pause this podcast, head over to JennieO'Connor.com/masterplan and jump on the waitlist today. So once you get some yes responses from this list of people that you've reached out to, you are then going to put those email addresses into an email service provider. I use ConvertKit, and all I can say is that I absolutely love it. Like, out of every single thing I subscribe to in my life, they have the best customer service. Like, I've had sometimes to go back and forth several times before I was able to clearly communicate the thing I needed done. And they never give up and they never get frustrated and they are always there for you and they respond quickly. And I worked with a lot of different email service providers that were garbage prior to ConvertKit. If I knew then what I know now, I would have just signed up with ConvertKit from the get-go. So I'm going to drop a link to that in the freebie for you and also in the show notes. So that you guys can go check out ConvertKit. I promise you will not be sorry. So step 3 is to choose a temporary brand identity. Note that I said temporary because just like the domain name project, you can get lost in this task for a month or more. I remember how I used to believe that before I could approach a single future potential client, I had to have a polished website and beautiful business cards and a page of testimonials, and whoa, you don't need any of those things at first, and you won't have them, quite frankly, and you don't have the money to spend on those things, most likely at this point, things like a graphic designer, and who uses business cards anymore anyway, and Wouldn't you rather be making money? I'm just going to keep circling back to that question. I've received some backlash for telling people to pick a temporary brand identity and get on with it. One person said to me very recently, your brand identity is your why. I would argue that your why is your why, and that can be summed up in a mission statement that you can put on the about page of your website or your home page. Your brand identity can and should enhance your mission statement, but I will bet all of you actual money that whatever path you've chosen for your burgeoning business is going to evolve and change and perhaps have a few switchbacks and maybe even some massive overhauls. And I stand by my previous assertion that I think you should wait a year or two before trying to solidify a brand look and feel that is going to satisfy your long-term forever vision for your business. Like, that might be good advice. Create a brand identity before you do anything else for specialists. It doesn't work for us. So, if you ignore this advice and do all of that up front, you're just going to kick yourself when you have to refine your logo and your entire brand kit later on down the line. If you want to ignore this advice, you do you. If you are dying to go into a rabbit hole over this, go for it. I am not here to dissuade you from the parts of business that sound super fun to you. But just remember, when you're designing your 7th logo and revamping your entire website, that I suggested you not spend a month on this task and consider just getting on with it. So here's what I would recommend that you do. You know what colors you love. Pick a few of those and go to the website, coolors.com. It's spelled like colors, except it has an extra O in the front, Coolors. I'll drop that link. And play around until you've combined 1, 2, or 3 of your favorite colors together. Then you can press the little lock icon. It looks like a little padlock. Press that guy so it locks, and then press the space bar and let the random generator suggest more colors to go with the colors that you have already chosen. You can also upload a photo, so you don't have to go searching for your color in the random generator by pressing the space bar a million times. Upload a photo that has the color that you like in there, and then use the eyedropper to select that color, lock it, move on. So the next thing, and I know this is a weird question, consider, is there a font that you like? Some of you probably could not care less about fonts. I happen to really be particular to serif fonts. So that means if you look at a letter, it looks like on the edges it has like a little foot. That's what serif means. If there's no feet, it's clean, no frills, it's called sans serif. I like serif fonts. I feel like sans serif fonts all look to me like Comic Sans, and if you know, you know, and it's not worth going into if you don't. But point being, I think serif fonts look a little more evocative of handwriting or something that you would see in an antique novel or calligraphy, whatever. It's just a design preference that I happen to be particular to. So maybe you have an opinion like that. And if you don't, you can go to Canva. I'm going to include a link here for you guys to go to Canva where you can set up a free account. If you don't have one of these already, it is game changing. I completely did away with my Adobe Suite, Photoshop, which is so damn hard to use if you don't have a graphic design background, because Canva does all of it for cheaper. So you can do a lot with the free account. I have the paid account. I recommend it so much. But you can go to create something, create a logo, create a Instagram reel. It doesn't matter what you choose, because all you're going to do is click on the text box and write a little bit of text in there, and then that will create a drop-down menu of fonts. You could probably do this in like a Google Doc or a Word document as well, and click the drop-down menu and then see what those fonts look like and make a decision based on that. Something that you want to consider is that you probably shouldn't choose a font that's really, really unusual. When I say unusual, if it's not in Google Docs or Word docs, like you can't find it on the list, that means it's unusual. You can always download a font off the internet and then upload it into your word processing system if you want it. But the issue with an unusual font is that it might not look the same on everybody's devices. So it will default to something more common and it might not look how you actually want it. So that's the one caveat to just sort of randomly picking fonts, is I do urge you to choose something that like you've heard the name of before. So once you've picked something, I, for example, use Playfair Display, which has a bunch of different versions like thin and bold and black, which is like extra bold, and there's even in all capitals. So it gives me tons of different options just with that one font. Then you can type in to Google fonts that pair well with Playfair Display, and it will come up with a second font that goes nicely. Lots of times a pairing will include a serif font and a sans serif font. I didn't go that route because I'm a picky bitch, but that will give you a few pairings to choose from. Pick the one you like, combine it with the color palette that you created in Coolors, call it a day. And then you can go back into your free Canva account and make a logo for yourself really, really simply. Even if you feel like you have no design skills, there are templates that you can click on and manipulate, like change the colors, move elements around, and truly come up with something that looks kind of professional all on your own. If you really, really don't want to do that, that is not your wheelhouse and you need help, you can go to Fiverr and my personal favorite, Upwork, because those are great spots to outsource the work on the cheap. So that is step number 3. Step number 4 is to write some bios. Lots of bios. So I'm going to save you a ton of time right now by suggesting that you make a master file of bios, because you will refer back to this 100 million times. And if you don't have everything in the same place, every time you make a change to one, you're going to have to remember where all of the other bios are, and you're bound to forget some. If they're all in the same place, you can make all the changes to all of them at the same time. It will just save you so much time and headache. And as a multi-passionate, I guarantee that you are going to change your bios, because your mission statement is going to change a little bit, or you will further fine-tune who your target audience is, or what your niche is, or what it is that you are an expert at and therefore selling to the world. So it's going to save you hours and hours to have everything in one place. So in your master file, you are going to include your mission statement, also kind of an elevator pitch, which will become your go-to response whenever someone says to you, "So, what do you do?" You're also going to write a short version of your bio and a long version. The long one will be for the about page of your website, and the short one will get a lot of use when you begin submitting yourself for interviews and podcast guesting, or you pitch articles to publications and you need a byline, things like that. Then you're also going to add bios for every single social platform that you're on, because they all have different character counts. You're also going to write an email signature that includes some version of your mission statement and then links to your socials. Also consider that even if you're not ready to do it right this second, adding a call to action to these bios is something you're going to eventually want. So call to action could be, download my free checklist for how to make $1 million by next Tuesday. Sign up for my free webinar on how to get six-pack abs while you watch Netflix and eat Cheetos. That kind of thing. Like I said, I know you haven't created that stuff yet, but your bios, and I mean all of them, are going to be the first place that you put that link once you do create it. So kind of always keep that in the back of your mind. So make a master list with all of your bio information included in it, and I will do an episode here soon on how to write a bio that will have your ideal audience literally clamoring to work with you. And I plan to create a freebie that goes into it with all of the different character counts for all of the different social media platforms, and it will also have a spot for you to drop links so that you can just go straight to those platforms, make teeny adjustments and tweaks as you move forward and refine your message over and over again. Step number 5, create an SOP. SOP stands for Standard Operating Procedures. Now, hear me out. You are probably not even thinking right now about bringing on an assistant or a designer or anyone else to flesh out your team for a good long while. That said, anything that you do over and over again, you need to think about if there's a way to automate it or delegate it. The only criteria for this task is that you do it over and over again, and it doesn't absolutely have to be done by you. So you might write blog posts over and over again for your website, and there are absolutely people who write blog posts who outsource that task, but I'm going to argue, maybe just because I'm a writer, that something like that is something that you have to do yourself. You are the one with the expertise. You are the one teaching a certain strategy or a certain system to your audience. So that's not a task that would go on to the SOP. But for everything else, can I automate it or can I delegate it? And a great way to identify what these tasks are for you in particular is to pay attention to what things feel tedious to you or like they're just not the best use of your creative talents. Nearly anything that feels that way should become a part of your SOP. So imagine if every time someone signed up for your email list, you had to write them an individual welcome email. Even if you copied and pasted that from a master document, that's still really labor intensive, especially if you get more than one sign up a day or several signups in a week, right? Also, you're in charge of literally everything else that goes into running a business. But you can automate a welcome email, and you can even automate a series, a sequence. After that first welcome email, 3 days later, you send out another email. That's something that you can do inside of ConvertKit, which is another reason why I love them and think you should sign up with ConvertKit. And don't waste your time on MailChimp or Sendinblue. Sorry to call those guys out, but just like ConvertKit is the bomb, y'all. So that's what I mean by automation. So over time, you will learn about different platforms and apps that let you take repetitive tasks off of your plate. But anything that must be done by a human, but just not you, goes onto your SOP. So I really recommend doing this now. You're going like, I don't need to think about that. That's so secondary. I've got all these other things on this checklist of tasks that I have to do. But there is a reason why making your SOP in the beginning stages of just getting things set up is so critical, because you have to slow down. You have to take several hours one day and work through the steps of this repetitive task one by one, writing down every single thing that's involved and directions for anyone who would never have done this before so that they would know how to do it without asking a bazillion questions. If you don't feel like typing all of that out, there is some voice software called Otter.ai. I'll drop that link. It's free, and you can just talk through what you're doing. You don't have to worry about typing it out. You'll still probably have to go in and edit it and add punctuation and stuff, but that's what I do a lot of times when I'm creating stuff for the SOP, so I can just talk at my computer and then it's pretty much done for me. Then you can take that document and hand it off to your future virtual assistant. And again, I know you don't have one right now, and I just want to reiterate that somewhere down the line, this is going to make training some help, whatever that looks like for you, infinitely easier. It's like an employee handbook, and you can just give it to whomever you hire. And if it's explained thoroughly enough, you don't really have to train them at all. So trust me when I tell you that by the time you are ready to hire a virtual assistant, you will be so busy that it will make you want to tear your hair out to have to sit down and write these tasks out one by one, because you're so busy. You're barely keeping your head above water. That is literally why you're hiring someone. So do it now when you're not at the treading water stage, and save yourself a ton of time down the line. You got me? All right, step number 6. You are going to run every action you take in your business through the intention filter. So let me tell you a little story. When I first started on the coaching path, I began writing posts on my blog which were related to self-development topics that I was interested in. And I was just writing about things that I wanted to talk about and hoping that some people in my world would read them when they got them in their email inbox. But I wasn't entirely sure yet what I wanted to create or sell, or honestly, even what my exact opinion on things was yet. I was kind of trying things out myself. And it is absolutely okay to be in this space and to, when you're first starting out, kind of curate content from other people while you're sorting out what your system is, what your opinion on this topic is. Curating means that other people don't have to read 8 books on this topic in order to get the same information that you're able to summarize for them in a short blog post. So you're still providing value. You're just getting your feet underneath you, so to speak. This is all the more argument for temporary branding. Am I right? So anyhow, I tried really hard to make my posts compelling and give my emails intriguing subject lines that would make people want to open them. But little did I know that I was making a grave mistake. I was not giving these articles that I was writing a call to action at the end. So you might be asking, if I have nothing to sell, what would I even use as a call to action? What about asking your audience to engage with you by commenting on the post so that you can start a conversation with them? This keeps them on your website longer, it helps you learn about your client avatar, and it develops know, like, and trust with your audience. You could also say, if you liked this post, check out these 3 other posts that are related to this topic. You could suggest that they follow you on social media. And definitely, once you start creating lead magnets, if you don't know what those are, I'm going to tell you in a different episode. It's too much for this one. But you can say at that point, if you want to add more healthy habits into your life, download my free habit tracker. Once they've done that, you can trigger an automated email sequence in ConvertKit that helps them learn all there is to know about healthy habit formation and has the potential one day, when you've created a course around the topic of habit formation, to ultimately pitch that course to them. But you don't have to have that created when you start doing this. You just start to have to think intentionally about what the point of this thing that you are making is. What is the end result? How are you bringing these people further into your funnel? So that's where I'm going with this. I didn't have an end game. I was putting information out into the world willy-nilly and thinking that would just magnetize my 1,000 true fans to me. But that is not how it works. And it is a waste of time to create things that don't have an end game. And as I've stated, the end game doesn't have to be monetary. These are the touch points of a client journey, and they can simply lead into starting a conversation. They can just be to get to know your audience better. So don't feel like this is used car salesman tactics. This is genuinely forging relationships and creating that oh so important know, like, and trust with your audience. And it was what I was missing. I wasn't creating a dynamic relationship with my people. So step 6 is using the intentionality filter for everything you make starting today. Step 7, start posting on social media. If you don't do this already, do it now. A lot of people resist this, or they start doing it in a way that's still really hiding, like posting a lot of quotes, especially if those quotes aren't yours. And I started out with doing this too. So if you're doing it, I'm not talking shit. I'm just saying, let's do something else now. When you're starting out, it's unlikely that you have 30 days of quotes that come out of your own head. That's why you're using quotes from other people. And you know that you need to make stuff that has value or is entertaining or that you would stop the scroll for. But bear in mind that social media is about quantity as much as it's about quality. Like you hear over and over and over again, you have to be putting out quality content. True story, but also your feed needs to be full of pretty pictures. So the sooner you can start creating that, the better. And it's really not something for you to spend like 10 hours a week on. Trust me. If you're gonna pour your heart and soul into, these posts, you're not gonna grow very fast. So I would put maybe a little less effort into a few more posts and I'm going to be straight up with you right now. After having resisted and fought the man on the notion that reels are the way to grow fast, I would just rather spend more time making reels in a week than that same amount of time on making 5 static posts. It's more posts, but it's the same time investment, aren't going to do anything for you. I have tried all the things. Reels are, of course, more time consuming, especially at first. They require you to be the most vulnerable of all the different kinds of post types. There's a learning curve with the tech, and then there are sometimes glitches that will make you want to burn your entire house down, huddle in the corner, and cry. But no joke, many of my videos get like 40 views. Some of my reels have gotten 10,000 views. Nothing else has been that effective. So the second best option behind Reels, and as you can tell, I'm speaking specifically to Instagram here. When you download the freebie, I talk a little bit about why I'm just speaking about Instagram here and which other platforms I don't feel are extremely beneficial for you to be on when you're starting out as an entrepreneur. So if you want a little bit more detail about that, I go into that in the freebie. But behind Reels, the second best option are photos of you. These also require vulnerability. If you're a little apprehensive about getting visible, you're not gonna like hearing that, but it's the truth. Selfies are not super time consuming except for the getting camera ready part, but they do perform well. Next up are carousel posts, but those actually take a bit of time to create. Again, you can do that in Canva if you want. That will actually help you a lot, especially using the templates. But even carousels aren't performing all that well these days. And come to think of it, neither are long captions. So stop laboring over them. Seriously, unless you enjoy wasting time, never write a long caption again. Here again, you do you. You can ignore this advice and make static posts with quotes from famous people on your feed. You can refuse to do reels. You can slave over the most educational static posts and lengthy captions that your audience should be grateful to you for sharing with them. But if you're multi-passionate and your energy is needed for at least 1 million things every single day, these tasks are the ultimate time sucks. They will prevent you from moving the needle as quickly as you are capable of. I'm sure everything I've just said to you here will change as the algorithm keeps up its frenetic pace of thwarting everything we creators do. But for now, this is what I know to be true. Reels, personal photos, carousels, short captions, and the occasional video that isn't a reel. In that order, roughly. My point is, you have to get visible. Like yesterday, just like with your email list. Yesterday. Your email list is going to guarantee that you'll always have an audience to sell to. Social media is how you grow that audience for free. So in order to take advantage of all that free publicity, you have to get boldly visible now. I have a love-hate relationship with social media. I see it as a necessary evil. I try really hard to be in the headspace of I am so grateful that it exists because it is free, even if it does mean that many of my conversations with my friends in person these days is me talking to the top of their heads while they're buried face first into their phones. But all I can say is this: if you are going to waste time, which is what it ultimately is, on the likes of social media, there is a way to waste it wisely, as I just outlined for you. Step number 8, network. Start meeting people. Shamelessly network. And when I say shamelessly, I don't mean going around talking about yourself incessantly and being super braggy. I don't feel like that's really something I have to say because mostly the people that I meet are not in danger of being arrogant. If anything, most of us tip the scale in the other direction and are meaner than we ought to be to ourselves about what our true talents actually are. But what I mean by this is that you should join forums and have genuine conversations with people and get them on Zoom calls. Folks you have something in common with or have been chatting back and forth with on Instagram, and make friends. Because when you're in the online space and you're not in an office and you're not having face-to-face meetings with people ever or often, it can get really lonely. And building a network helps with that. But more than that, people need people. You will grow faster if you collaborate, if you share ideas, and if you have a group of people in your corner who will spread the word when you are launching a thing or promote the book you just wrote, or who just generally believe in you and talk to their friends about how talented you are, like that's worth its weight in gold. And then you, in turn, do the same for them. But it is up to you to forge those relationships. Those don't happen. This isn't high school where you just sort of easily fall into friend cliques anymore. Like, you have to go out of your way and make an effort to make this happen for yourself. The best way to do this is to offer value to people in the online space. Let's say on LinkedIn, for example, you could write to someone and say, I saw this article and it made me think of you, so I thought I would send it your way. You could introduce someone to a friend of yours who might have a job opportunity for them. The more you spread around your generosity of time, of knowledge, of existing connections, the more your new connections will learn that you are someone who can be trusted and someone who has a profound network of useful people, and perhaps that you'd be a shoo-in for this new opportunity they just heard about. I used to find network really, really intimidating, and I would drink shots of tequila before I went to a networking function, and I would still hide in the corner in spite of the liquid courage because I hated bragging about myself. I felt awkward describing what I did for a living, and probably because that was constantly changing back then, so I wasn't super confident anyway. And I hated the feeling of forcing a friendship. Like, everything about networking back in the day felt so super gross to me. But you guys, in this new digital age, you can jump on a Zoom call with your coffee in hand, wearing your pajamas for 15 to 30 minutes with a total stranger, and it's super low key. Have a brief chat, see what you have in common, see maybe what you can offer each other. I swear I wish dating were this easy. If you never want to talk to them again, you can end the call and you don't have to. No pressure, easy peasy. Trust me, this is way easier than it sounds if you haven't tried it yet. Being a podcaster helped me with this a ton because I just offer to bring people on my show who I think are interesting so that we can talk further. I follow them on socials. I start liking and interacting with a bunch of their posts. Super easy to do. And even if it sounds stalkery, it's not, because it's a new era, y'all. And it will change the game when you have people in your corner because you're no longer a tiny little solopreneur shouting into the void. Instead, your reach is expanding exponentially with every single person you befriend. I cannot stress enough the importance of this. We have an entire training call dedicated to this in the Multi-Passionate Master Plan because I think other coaches overlook this big time. And if you are shouting into the digital void, networking is your life preserve, you guys. Everything will take you 10 times longer without a network. So fast track yourself. Create an interesting people fund. What that means is setting aside a certain percentage of your paycheck or your savings and then using that to take someone interesting to lunch or to attend a talk they're giving. Also, set a goal for yourself of adding one new fun or inspirational person to your network every single week. 4 in a month. That's not impossible, right? You can do it. I believe in you. So that is it, you guys. That is a wrap. Thank you so much for listening. I really hope that you found this helpful, especially if you're ready to just dive in, start your business. If you did find value from this, you can show your appreciation by dropping a tip at buymeacoffee.com/Jennie O'Connor. Or you can support the show by rating and reviewing. I am super grateful for each and every review because it helps me get found in the sea of other podcasts so that other multi-passionates like you can hear what I have to say. Also, please come join me on the socials at Your Creative Fairy Godmother. I'm on Instagram and Pinterest, and you can even watch the full video of these episodes on YouTube. So I promised if you stayed to the end, I would tell you how to get the freebie for this episode, which is a checklist of each of these tasks with all of the links that I mentioned and the special things that you need to consider for each of these important tasks. So grab your download by visiting jennyo'connor.com/startyourbiz. All one word, no spaces. That's jennyo'connor.com/startyourbiz. And until next week, ponder this. You know that old saying, if I knew then what I know now? Well, now is your chance to apply it. Now get on out there and do the thing.